Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for being here for another installment of the Stay Healthy at Home webinar series. We really appreciate your participation. As some of you may know, this is a recurring series. We're here every Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and we cover a different topic every week. My name is Ashley Ritchie, and I am the director of the New Jersey Self-Advocacy Project, which is a program of the ARC of New Jersey. I am so happy to be joined by two guest presenters today. They have presented other topics for us, and today's topic is especially important. We're talking all about money management. So I would like to introduce Dr. Ann Ryan and Sarah Brown. Dr. Ryan is the online program director for Strive Worldwide, an online program designed to teach independent living skills to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and autism. Ann's background prior to joining Strive is in higher education, serving as the academic dean and campus president. Ann has a master's degree in higher education with a focus on online teaching and learning and a doctorate in academic leadership. Ann's research has focused on providing access to higher education in underserved populations. She lives in Kennebunk, Maine with her husband, son, and dog, Stan. And Sarah Brown is the training coordinator for PSL Services Strive and an instructor for Strive Worldwide and TOPS, which is Strive's transitional program for high school students. Sarah has worked with PSL and Strive since 2004 in residential and community support, program management, and curriculum design, as well as a bunch of other fun projects. Sarah enjoys building relationships with participants and furthering inclusion through education. Sarah studied sociology at the University of Southern Maine and is an EdTech 3 certified in the state of Maine. So again, thank you all for being here today. I will turn it over to you.
Thanks for having us.
Ashley. Yeah, and as Ashley said, I think this is our three-peat, so I'm seeing some names that look familiar to me, so it's good to see you all again. And thank you for joining us today to learn about money management. So what we will be presenting today is part of a 5-week online course that we offer at Strive Worldwide, which again is an online program that teaches independent living skills to neurodiverse students. And we are excited to be here today to explore the ways in which we spend money. So we're going to look at what are your wants, what are your needs, do you buy mostly things or do you spend money on experiences, and are you happy with those answers? And then once we have an idea about how we spend our money, we're going to learn some decision-making strategies that can help us to make better financial decisions. And then we will practice and apply those decision-making skills together so we're prepared for our next financial decision. So this is just a quick housekeeping if GoToWebinars is new for you or if you haven't been here in a while. If you have questions you'd like to ask, you can type your questions in the questions box and then click send to send them to us. And we'll actually be using polls and this question box throughout today. So when we ask an open-ended question, we'll ask you to type your answers into the questions box. And when we ask multiple choice questions, we will launch a poll for you to answer. So if everybody's ready, we're going to get started with our agenda.
All right, so here is our agenda for today. We're going to start out with an icebreaker activity to try to get people warmed up and kind of do a little financial check-in. Then we're going to talk about our needs versus our wants and what those mean and how they're different. And then we're going to do some more defining and talk about goods and services and talk about how those two things are different. And then we're going to spend quite a bit of time talking about decision making and how we make decisions currently and how we could possibly think about decisions in the future. And then we always wrap up our activities with a little activity that we call Rose, Bud, Thorn. And what we're going to ask you at the end is your rose is something that you learned, Bud is something that you're looking forward to, and Thorn is something that was either unclear or was challenging. And we'll ask you to share those with us so that we can kind of see what you learned. And if you have questions, give you a chance to get them cleared up. Cool. Great. And all of our Strive Worldwide classes are designed for students with intellectual disabilities and autism and other neurodivergent brains. We encourage people to attend as independently as possible. So we like to remind people at the beginning of each class for supporters to do with, not for. What that might look like in this situation is rephrasing questions and topics, repeating things, but really if we're asking a poll, we want to hear what the participant has to say. So make sure that we're not answering questions for them, but maybe directing them to which poll answer goes with what they had said. So remember to empower your participants.
All right, so we're going to start off with an icebreaker, which is typically a seminar favorite, and we get to ask silly questions, get warmed up, and we can identify any tech issues that you might have before getting started. So we often use the chat box for small groups, but since we have a bigger crowd today, we're going to do a combination, as I said before, of polls and open-ended questions. So that's a great time for supporters to practice supporting as well. So we're going to start off with our first question, which is a poll that Sarah is going to launch for us. And the question is, if you're going to a barbecue, do you choose a hamburger or a hot dog? And that can be real meat or the veggie equivalent for either of them. So you should be seeing a poll now, and you can vote burger, hot dog, or other. So we'll just wait a few moments while we are collecting those answers through the poll. And I can give you a preview of what our next question is, because if you're finished with the poll, you can start answering the next question in the questions box. And that is, tell us the last thing that you bought. So you can type that right into the questions box while we are waiting for the first poll to finish up.
Looks like we got about 80% in, so I'm going to close. And I'm going to share our answers. Looks like 75% said they choose a burger of some sort. Over 13% chose hot dog, and 13% said something else.
I am a veggie burger type of gal myself, so I'm with the masses on this one. And again, if you want to type into the questions box, what is the last thing you bought?
I think the last thing that I bought was probably groceries.
Yeah. William says a soft pretzel, and that sounds delicious. And now I want a soft pretzel, so thank you, William. Let's see. I'm not seeing any other answers come in, but you can answer to yourself if you're not comfortable asking or answering in the questions box. Like Sarah, I think my last purchase was probably groceries too, or maybe something on Amazon, which is the goal I'm working to reduce, which we'll talk a little bit about later too. Oh, what is Yu-Gi-Oh? Tyler got Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yu-Gi-Oh is it's a card game, kind of like Pokemon, I believe.
Oh, cool. Nice. Yep, cards. Thank you.
I got you.
And Jane got hers on Amazon. Perfect.
A reacher, cool. Sounds like some maybe adaptive tech. And it looks like Adam bought a steak.
And Brian got some gas for his car. Cool. All right. So we're going to do one more question, and this one's going to come through from a poll. And the question is, do you prefer to pay with cash, credit, or check, or something else? Tyler told us he also got the cards from Amazon. Yeah, Amazon has become just a little bit too convenient when it's hard to go out to the store right now, right? Okay. so the answers are coming in, and it's a mix of credit, cash, and other. Looks like people are not digging the checks anymore.
The only thing I use a check for is my rent.
Yeah. And even when I do checks now, I pay it through like online banking, so I don't actually have to write a check, which is preferable.
All right, here we go. Here are our answers. Looks like 22% said cash, but credit was the big winner with over half people using credit of some sort. We got check with 0% and other 22.
Yeah, that's smart. William uses a gift card. Is that something that you refill on your own so you know how much you're spending, or is that you wait until you receive gift cards and then you spend them? All right. We are going to start off with needs and wants. William waits and Tyler uses debit. Awesome.
Cool. Yeah, so debit is kind of like, it's my checking account, right? But it's not writing a check. So I wonder if that falls under credit because it's a plastic card, or if the other. Yeah, we could have probably made that clear next time. Cool.
Good.
All right, well, I'm going to get to talk to you about wants versus needs. And a thing that we feel strongly about is making sure that we define our terms to make sure that we're all on the same page. So let's talk about needs. Needs. A need is something that you must have for survival. So something that you need to live. Can anybody think of something that's a need? If you can, go ahead and type it in the questions box.
Tyler says shoes.
Oh, that might, yeah, that's a need, huh?
Mm-hmm. Jane says food.
Yeah, that was one of the first ones that we came up with.
Yep.
Cool. All right, let's look at some of our ideas. So there it is right there, food. Food is a need because you have to have it to live. And water is a need.
Yep, Brian got that one right.
Nice, good job. What about shelter? Some place to keep you warm and safe from the elements. How are those different than something that you want? So a want is something that you'd like to have, but it's not necessary and you could live without it. Like a new gaming system or those Yu-Gi-Oh cards, right? Pretty sweet, but I could live without it no matter what I tell my mom, right? So I saw somebody in the box, Adam says a phone. Yeah, this is where we kind of want to talk about the idea that sometimes needs and wants overlap. Right? So for example, like cake is a food and I need food to survive, but do I need cake to survive? Not really. So it's not quite a need, it's a want. In general, you need a basic diet to survive, but that diet does not have to include cake. Another example might be you need clothing, but do you need brand new designer clothing? Not really. Here is another one that I think we were just talking about. Yeah, an iPhone. I think that this is an overlapper because you need a way to communicate, right? But does it have to be the newest, shiniest, most up-to-date version of the iPhone, Android, Google, Samsung, whatever it is? Or can it just be something that works and it does all of the things that I need it to do, but maybe it's a couple generations old?
Yeah, Tyler says it's about how you use it.
You're right. So right now, I would say something connected to the internet is probably important if that's what you're using if you're using it for work, or you're using it for school, or you're using it for telehealth, like for your doctor's appointments or therapy appointments. It's probably important to have something with a video camera. where with Wi-Fi, absolutely. A few years ago, just something that made phone calls you could probably get by with. Right.
All right,
Cool.
so that overlapping can get confusing. So now that we know what needs and wants are, let's see if we can identify what some specific things are. So what we're going to do is show you some images, and you're going to tell us using the poll if it's a need, a want, or if they overlap. So you'll use the poll to answer the question, and then if you want to explain why you chose your answer, you can use the questions box for that. So the first question is chips. Is that a need, a want, or is that kind of an overlap? So Sarah's going to launch the poll, and you guys are going to answer in there. And again, if you want to tell us why you chose which one you choose, you can put that in the questions box. All right, so we're seeing answers coming in.
Looks like about a third of you have voted so far.
Awesome.
Take your time. Looks like you're pretty well split.
Yeah.
William has explained his answer, but I won't spoil it until we share the poll.
That's what I was thinking too. All right, so
All
I'm not
right.
seeing new votes coming in, so let's publish that.
Let's do it. All right. So we are split between want and they overlap. So nice job. Nobody said that's definitely a need, right? I don't think anybody's doctor's ever said, please eat more potato chips. Right?
If they are, please refer me to your doctor.
Yeah, let me know who you're talking to.
Yeah, so 57% said it's a want and 43% said they overlap. So William said it's junk food, so it's a want. And Tyler said, I chose want because it's unhealthy. So those that said overlap, I am going to guess for you why you chose that. But if you want to correct me, you can put that in the questions box. But I'm guessing you chose they overlap because food is a need, but chips are not a need, right?
I suppose if you were starving and there was absolutely nothing else, chips is better than nothing. So it could be a need if there's no other options.
True enough.
So I think that everybody got it right.
Yeah, I think so. That was a great one. Let's do another one. And this one might be even a little bit more tricky. So this is a tablet. So is a tablet a need, a want, a need, or does it overlap? Or does it depend?
A tablet could be like a Amazon Fire tablet. It could be an iPad. It could be a Note. I think there's other kinds. I don't really know. But here we go. A tablet. Is it a want, a need, or they overlap?
Yeah, so I use my tablet mostly for reading. But some other people might use their tablet for communication, right?
I use my tablet for notes for presentations.
Aha. All right, so this one, we've got answers in all three categories. So if you wouldn't mind, please explain why you chose your answer in the questions box. Looks like most of you have voted so far.
All right, here we go. I'm going to share it. And if I cut you off and you didn't get a chance to vote, feel free to type your answer in the question box. So,
yeah, so it looks
25
like
people say it's a want, 25 people say it's a need, and 50% say overlap. Nice.
Yeah. And William, I think that might be, is it for the ARC? Do you use your tablet to join presentations for the ARC?
I thought it might mean augmented communication.
Ah.
So if you're using a tablet for a communication device, then absolutely it's a need.
Yeah. But if you're just using it like me to read stories, that's probably just a want. So I get why people say they overlap because it depends how you use it, right? Very good. Okay, let's try another one. A bicycle. Is that a want, a need, or an overlap? And when is the last time you rode a bicycle? I actually rode one last week.
The last time I rode a bicycle was when I went to see a race that my friend was doing, and I hardly remembered how to ride a bike, but then I was fine.
There you go. Gina Marie, you are correct. This is money management. So we're talking about where our money goes and how we make better decisions. So first, we're defining kind of what we spend our money on, trying to help us understand if we're spending our money on things we need or things we want. So that's why we're focusing on this practice right here. That's a great question. Okay, I think we've got good portion of you voting.
Yeah,
So
looks like
50% of you
50%.
say it's a want. Sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
No, go ahead. You're good.
All right, 17% say it's a need and 33% say it overlaps. So Adam says he can't drive, so that might make a bike more important for him for transportation, right? Jane hasn't been on a bike for a long time, since elementary school, so for her it's probably a want, or maybe even not even a want. Maybe you don't want a bike. And Tyler says it's good for exercise. Yeah, so that's a good point too. So if you're using it to keep your body healthy, that might overlap too. So great job with these.
What do you think? Do you think we should jump ahead and talk about goods and services?
Yeah, let's do the next slide. Here we are, goods and services.
All right, well, nice job with that. So we're going to go back to defining some things. So let's define what is a good. So a good is something that is used or consumed. So think about something that you buy, that you use. Another way to think about it is if you buy something that's a good, it's something that you can touch. So I bought this water bottle. I can touch it. It's a good, right? So I bought groceries. I bought bananas and milk and cereal, all things that I can touch. You know, the cereal is also going to be consumed, right? I'm going to use it up. I'm going to take it in, just like it's consumed. It's something I can touch. Also, like I bought jeans. So like I bought pants. I can touch them and I'm going to use them because I'm going to wear them. Right? Oh, good example, Adam. Adam says a DVD movie. Yeah, something that you can touch. That's a good. It falls into the category of goods. Cool. Let's see a couple of other examples down there. And can you give me a couple of clicks?
The next click is services.
Okay, well, let's do that. So services is something that you could spend your money on that is work done for others. So this is something that you could buy, but you can't really touch. So we're going to do a little bit of is it a good, is it a service? So let's check this out. This looks like a delicious pizza bagel maybe, or a sandwich or pizza. I can't tell. Whatever it is, it looks delicious.
We've had a lot of debate on whether that's pizza, taco, or nachos or something, but it looks good.
Yeah, whatever it is, she's definitely touching it with her hands, right? And she is consuming it. She is taking it in. That makes it a good. Next up, clothes. If you're touching those clothes, that means it's a good. Even if you buy clothes and you don't touch them, they're still a good. Somebody could touch them, right? So here's some examples of things that you can't really touch. This is a little gif of Ben Stein from the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, in which he plays a teacher. So this teacher is getting paid, but can you touch what a teacher does for work? kind of weird to think about, right? You could touch a teacher, but can you touch teaching? No. So that means the service that a teacher provides is what they get paid for. So they are providing a service. Right now, I am providing a service. Cool. We get one more example here. This looks like a firefighter. You can touch a firefighter and you can touch a fire, but don't because it'll hurt. The service that the firefighter provides is like putting out the fire. Can you touch the idea of putting out a fire? Not really. So if you can touch it, it's a good. If you can't really touch it, it's a service. That makes sense? Let's give it a try. A little quiz.
Do some more practice. So just like we did with wants and needs, we're going to show you some pictures and you're going to tell us through the poll if it's a good or service. And then if you want to explain why you chose your answer, you can use the questions box for that. So the first example is a police officer. Is this a good or service? You will see the poll launching in just a moment. You can answer the question there, and then you can type why you chose that into the questions box.
Can you touch the job that a police officer does? You can touch a police officer, but you can't buy a police officer.
All right. It's like half of you have voted. Why don't those
This is
of
a little
you...
bit complicated.
Yeah, I know. So I think it would be helpful if those of you who voted put your reasoning why you chose either a good or service into the questions box. Okay. I don't see any new answers coming in. So right now we're sitting at 80% of you think that a police officer provides a service and 20% of you thinks a police officer is a good. So because we can touch the police officer, but we can't touch the work that the police officer does. He's providing a service to hopefully protect. William says he's working. You see someone working, right? So because he is working and providing us a service, he or she, that is a service. So these ones can get pretty tricky, can't they? Let's try another one. Is clothing a good or a service?
Remember, can you touch it?
Yeah.
If you can touch it, it's a good. If you can't touch it, it's a service.
All right, the votes are coming in fast and furious. So right now it looks like everybody thinks that this is a good. Yeah. So the sales clerk would be a service, right? But the items that you're purchasing, the clothing, those are goods. You put them on, you wear them, you touch them, you consume them. When they get worn out, you might recycle them or do something else with them. But those are goods. So yeah, let's just do one more example before we move on to our next topic. So we're seeing chips again.
Our chips are back.
Yeah, we know that chips are a want, or maybe they overlap, but are they a good or service? Do you touch them, or do they provide you a service? All right. So the majority are saying that these are good, that chips are a good, and 14% are saying that it's a service. So I'm going to say that chips are a good because you eat them, you consume them. I think I might have muddied the water when I said, do they provide you a service? Because they do kind of provide you a service of being nutrition, not great nutrition, but they feed you.
I like William's answer. He said it's a bad good. It isn't
clever.
good because you can touch it, but it's not necessarily healthy for you. I think that's what you meant by a bad good, and I like that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. All right, we are going to go on to talking about decisions, and particularly financial decisions. So let's talk about how we make financial decisions, because we make decisions all the time. And even when we choose not to act on something, that in and of itself is a decision. But there are many ways to make a decision, and some of them aren't helpful at all. So let's look at how some people make decisions. These are different ways that you might make a decision. You might make a decision spontaneously, where you see something you want and you just go for it. You don't really think about it, you just buy it. You could be compliant. You could do what someone else recommends or tells you to do. So if you are the type of person that reads every review or asks friends and family for recommendations before spending money, you might use that sort of compliant decision making. Another decision-making type is just procrastination. If you're putting off making a decision for as long as you can, you just don't want to make that decision, so you're kind of not making a decision by procrastination. And agonizing. You could spend lots of times worrying about the decision that you make, but not actually making a decision. But the thing to remember for both agonizing and procrastinating is not making a decision is making a decision too, because you're not moving forward, right? Another way you could make a decision is by relying on your past. So you could keep doing something because it's the way you've always done it. So like if you have one type of shoe you have, every time you need shoes, you just order a new pair of the same thing. I completely do this with my flip-flops. I'm a Tiva girl for life. So those are the different kinds of ways people make decisions. So now that you know the different ways that you might make a decision, Sarah's going to launch a poll, and you're going to pick your strongest decision-making style. And you probably have more than one. For instance, more than anything, I'm an impulse buyer, but I do check reviews, and there are things that I rely on for my past experience, like for some clothing and for groceries, but primarily I would put impulse. So the poll is in progress.
I think I might be an agonizer. I put things in my cart online and then wait a really long time before I decide to actually buy it, because I'm like, do I really want that? It helps.
Yeah,
it helps me anyway.
Actually a great strategy, because you can then kind of, with that impulse buying, I don't agonize over it and I waste money. And if I were really to think about it, I buy stuff I probably don't need. So if I just put them in my shopping cart like Sarah does, that would help me to not buy as much, right? Okay, looks like almost half of you have voted. We'll wait just
I think my other one, if I was going to pick two, my other one would be compliance. And I ask a lot of people, it's not just waiting for somebody to tell me what to do, but it's like, what did you think? Like, all of my friends drive a very similar type of car because they really like them and it works really great. So if it works really great for them and they really like it, maybe I should get one too.
Yeah, I know. I love Amazon, which I know we're talking a little bit too much about Amazon today. This is not an ad for Amazon, but I like to sort things by review, and I look at only things that have 4 stars or above. So that's how I know I'm getting a better quality, right? Okay, so I think the votes have stopped coming in. So it looks like 20% of you are procrastinating on decision making. 60% of you are agonizing, so you spend lots of time worrying about the decision. And 20% of you just do what you've always done. Okay, awesome. Well, keep that in your mind when we move on to our decision making process.
All right, so we're going to practice making some decisions along with some questions we can ask ourselves as we work through this process. So the first step in our decision-making model is to identify the goal or the problem that you're trying to solve. So we need to know what we're either trying to solve, the problem, or what are we trying to achieve, the goal. This is the what. Step 2 is gather information. Once we know what decision we're trying to make, we need as much information about it as possible. This is the so what. So some places where you might be able to find information might be the internet. Maybe it's asking for advice. Maybe it's those past experiences that we just talked about. Or maybe it's an expert. It kind of depends on the situation. Cool. Step 3 is list all the possible alternatives. When you make a decision, that means that there's different choices available. Sometimes not all of the choices are obvious, and you have to think about what they are. This requires some brainstorming and creativity, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. This is the what if step. This is also a good step to ask for advice if you know someone who might have experience with whatever decision you're making. Cool. Step 4, consider the consequences and evaluate alternatives. So every action has a consequence, and we define consequence as whatever comes after. It's the outcome. It could be good, it could be bad, whatever happens after. So this step requires stretching your imagination even further to imagine what if to each of those alternatives that you identified. This also gets easier with practice. So this is why we're going to practice the steps in just a minute. Step 5 is select the best course of action. Once you've thought about what would happen with each of the alternatives and evaluated which you think is the best, you make your decision. This is the what then? And then step 6, evaluate your results. Once you've acted on your decision, you think about how it worked out. Were there consequences with were the consequences what you thought they would be? Do you still feel like you made the best decision? Would you do it again? This is the now what? Reflecting on your decisions and what went well and what didn't will help you make better decisions in the future. And you'll continue to get better and better. Perfection is not the goal, but improvement is.
All right, so we are now going to try applying that decision-making process to different scenarios. So let's say you're trying to choose between 2 alternatives. Should you buy a new video game or order pizza for dinner? You have enough money to do only one. So we're going to walk through the decision-making process using the questions box. So first step, what is the problem or the goal in this situation? You want to buy a video game and order pizza, but you only have enough money to do both. So what is the problem or goal here? We'll let those questions come into, or the answers come into the questions box. Okay. So, because this is our first example, I'm going to help out with the answer. So what I think the problem here is that I don't have enough money to do both of the things that I want to do. So that's the problem I'm going to try and solve. What do I do because I don't have enough money? So step 2 is what information should I gather? So if you're making a decision trying to decide between pizza for dinner or a new video game, what information should you gather? I'll walk through this whole example on my own, and then the next one we'll have you guys participate. How does that sound?
Do you want to quiz me and I'll quiz you on the next one?
That sounds good.
Okay.
So Sarah, what information do you need to gather about your problem of not having enough money to do both pizza and video game?
Well, I need to know exactly how much money I have right now. I need to know how much this video game costs. I need to know how much the pizza costs. How hungry am I?
Yeah.
How long have I wanted this video game? I have a lot of questions.
Yeah. How about, do you have any other food alternatives? Do you have food in the house that you can make yourself?
I do.
Do you think this game is going to go on sale anytime soon? Or is there another way you can play the video game? So let's look at step 3, which is brainstorming all of the alternatives. So here's what I could do. I could buy the video game and not the pizza. I could buy the pizza and not the video game. I could buy neither. I could make myself food from home and buy the game. I could borrow a game from a friend or look for a used version of the game. So those are the alternatives I've thought up. Can you think of any other alternatives? Brian says, when will those funds be replenished, as a question to ask what to buy? Right, so if you have a payday tomorrow, will you have enough money to buy your game tomorrow? You might choose pizza today knowing that you've got more money coming in tomorrow. That is a great question, Brian, thank you. Okay, let's look at the consequences and evaluation. So Sarah, from those alternatives, can you tell me what the consequences of making each of those decisions might be?
Yeah, so if I bought the game, then I would have the game and no pizza. If I bought the pizza, I would have the pizza but no game. If I didn't buy either, I wouldn't have either. If I ate at home, I would be saving money because I already paid for that food, and if I don't eat it, it's going to go bad. And then I will have just like thrown that money away. I could, if I borrow the game from my friend, maybe I could just play it at their house, or we could play it together, and then I'd get to play with my friend too, and that's pretty cool. But I don't get to keep the game. If I wait for a sale, I don't really like waiting. And, you know, if I don't do either, then, you know, maybe I don't get either.
Okay. So now we know the different decisions we could make. Now, and we know what might happen if we make those decisions. Now it's time for us to select which outcome we want. So feel free to weigh in here, but just to recap, the choices that we gave ourselves are buying a video game and not pizza, buying pizza, not a video game, buying neither, making lunch and buying the game, borrowing a game from a friend, or looking for a used version of the game. Which one would you guys pick? I think I would pick making lunch and buying the game, because that's the only alternative I see where I can have both food and not be hungry and a game.
I think I would do that too, except I'm extra frugal. So I would eat lunch at home and look to see if I could find a used copy of the game. So then I would have a little bit of extra money for next time I needed or wanted something.
That makes sense. Okay. So the last step we really can't do, or we can only do in our imagination, since we're not buying a pizza and we're not getting a game right now. This is just a practice question. But once you've made a decision and you've seen it through, you can then go back and evaluate the results and say, okay, did that work out like I thought it would? Like, let's say we made lunch at home and bought the game. But, you know, I was happy that I got to eat, but I was still kind of bumming because I wanted pizza. So maybe I wouldn't make that decision again. You know, pizza is very important to me.
Maybe when I went to the game store, I learned that you can trade in your old games for money towards new games. So maybe there's that game that I don't play very much, and I can bring that with me next time and get a deal.
I love that. Yeah. So that is really kind of a small decision that is based on your finances that you can walk through that process. Let's try a different decision that you need to make.
All right. Molly's friends, Susie and Brad, both just got the newest iPhone, and they've been going on and on about how cool it is, all the features, the camera's so great. Molly has an iPhone, but it's a couple of generations old. It still works well, but she's up for an upgrade. It'll be an extra $35 a month, but she thinks it's worth it. She's not sure where she's going to get that money from, but that's next month's Molly's problem. So she upgrades it that day.
Oh boy.
So, Anne, what was the problem?
I can't really think of a problem. She just wants a new phone, right? There's nothing wrong with her old phone, but she's kind of envious of her friends' phones.
Yeah. What information did she gather? What information did she miss?
Yeah. So let's think about this. She gathered the information about how much the upgrade would cost, right? That she was eligible for an upgrade on her phone. But the information that she missed, she's got no idea how she's going to pay for it, right?
It's a little scary. I mean, she said that her friends liked it, but that's not quite enough information for me.
No.
What alternatives did she consider? Did she look to see how much, like, an Android might cost? Did she look at a refurbished new phone?
I don't think she went digging for any alternatives. She just kind of impulse bought that phone, right?
All right. So what about considering the consequences and evaluating those other outcomes? Which ones did she consider?
Well, she identified a problem that she didn't know where she was going to get the money, but then she passed that problem on to Molly in the future. So she really didn't even consider the consequences, right?
So what choice did she make?
She bought that phone.
Do you think it was a good choice if we're evaluating our results?
Well, considering she skipped a bunch of the steps, I don't think it was a great choice. She didn't use the decision-making process. She just bought it based on an impulse. So maybe what she could have done is go through steps 2 through 6. So maybe we can try steps 2 through 6 together. What information should she have gathered? Type in the questions box what information, or did she miss any information? She did gather quite a bit of information. She knew she was ready for an upgrade. She knew the cost, but she didn't know how she was going to pay for it. Was there any other information she should have considered? Like maybe how much longer is my current phone going to keep working?
Yeah. Or how much money do I have left over after I pay for all of my needs that I could spend on wants in my budget?
That's a great question.
William says, do I need to see a video or not?
So we've got the information. What alternatives could she have considered? We talked about some of them, right? We talked about she could check for a refurbished phone. Any other questions or alternatives she should have considered? Again, you can use that questions box to tell us what you think.
What do I need the phone to do? Great.
A great question. If you're just
so
using
maybe
it
you could get
and make calls, doesn't matter what version you have, does it?
Maybe you could get a newer phone, but less data, and maybe that would be less expensive. Oh, you could maybe get a computer instead. Yeah.
Mhm.
You could use the phone for making calls and use video and video chat and internet on your computer if you already have one.
Perfect.
Neat ideas.
So what would the consequences of each of those different alternatives be? An iPad? Yeah, so let's say you got an iPad. If you got it with data, you could still make phone calls, right? But you might also wind up spending just as much money on an iPad, right? If you got a refurbished phone, what would the consequences of that be?
You could save a little bit of money and still have a newer phone than the one that you have.
Yeah, I like that. Let's see, what if she got a computer?
What if she already had a computer? And so she can do most of the things on her computer that she would do on her phone, so the phone doesn't have to do all those things.
Yeah. I like that one. If she wants more expensive things, she can get a new job. Yeah, you gotta have
She
the
might
money.
have to because she's spending money that she doesn't know where it's going to come from.
That's scary. Okay. So if you were Molly, what decision would you guys have made? Would you have gone ahead and spent that extra $35 a month not knowing where that money was going to come from? Or would you have chosen one of the other alternatives we talked about? Personally, I like a combination of all of your ideas. So I like Sarah's idea of maybe getting a new phone, but cutting down on the data. So one of the things that we didn't gather for information, but now that I'm saying this out loud, maybe we should have, is how much data does she use each month and how much data is on her plan? If there's a lot more data on her plan than what she uses, then she could reduce that, right? William says he could ask his case manager for the money.
That's a great idea. Is if you're not sure, talk to somebody who might be able to help you out. In Maine, we have a thing called supported decision making, and that's like identifying people who can help you with special things. So maybe you say, I want this person to really help me out with my money stuff. And if I have money questions, I'm going to go to this person. And that could be a great talk. And they might say, you have this much money to play with. And by play with, I mean, you know, it's money left over after you've paid for all of your needs. So if you can get that phone that you want for under this much a month, go for it. That'd be cool.
Love that. I'm not sure we have enough time for a whole other scenario. What do you think, Sarah?
I don't think so either.
Okay. So what we can do is skip.
I bet we could jump to everybody's second favorite after icebreakers is Rose, Bud, Thorn. So go ahead and type your answers in the chat box. We want to know something that you learned today, something that you're looking forward to, and something that you might be unsure about or something that was not clear that we talked about today. And what was your rose for today?
I think my rose was getting to see some of the names and participants that we've seen in some of our other presentations. It's nice to see you guys again.
Yeah, that was great.
But I also liked, spending time thinking about how I spend my money, right? Because I was identifying, just as I was talking out loud with you guys, some things that maybe aren't the best choices that I make, right? And the first part in changing a behavior is knowing what you want to change. So I know I need to work a little less on being impulsive or spontaneous with my shopping. How about you, Sarah?
I agree. I think that it's really great to see everybody's names again, and get to share some of this cool stuff. I like talking about the decision-making process because it can be used for just about everything that you have to make a decision on, not just about spending money. Like maybe you're making relationship decisions, maybe you're trying to decide where to go for dinner, or, you know, what color shirt do I want to buy? Like,
Yeah.
you can use this same process for just about anything.
And I think that, you know, once you slow down, because I think what happens when we make, well, for me in particular, impulsive spending decisions is that I'm not thinking, right? So if I take this process, it automatically pumps the brakes, right? I can't be impulsive if I'm using the process because I have to answer these questions and I have to think deeply about the decision that I'm going to make. And that helps me to make better choices, right? And then once you use this decision-making process, you will get used to kind of cataloging those decisions and those steps of the decision-making process. And you might get to a point where you can do those without having to stop and say, okay, what's the process? What step do I need to do next? You might just do it automatically, which would be great.
Great. William says he shops by procrastinating and not buying things, and looks like he feels good about that. And I think his thorn was, we didn't talk very much about budgeting. You're right. My, 2 seconds worth of budgeting talk is you need to figure out how much money you have to spend each month, or however long you want to set your budget for. Maybe you do budget by a week. But think about how much money you have coming in, that's income. And then you have to think about all of the money that you're going to spend that chunk of time, week or month. And you start with your wants and make sure that you can pay for, you start with your needs. So you pay for all of those things that you need to survive. And then if there's extra money left over, you can squeeze in some of those wants, like chips or video games or pizza or a new phone.
Yeah. We were saying to Ashley at the beginning of this that money management is such a huge topic, right? So we can't fit everything into a 1-hour seminar, but we can lay the building blocks. So before you make your budget, you need to know what are your needs and what are your wants, right? And you need to know where your money's going. Are you spending it all on your wants and needs, or your needs? Or are you spending it all on your wants? And that is the first step in building your budget, is to know where your money's going.
And Adam would like to make sure that he has money budgeted for ice cream, and I agree.
I hear that, yeah, especially in the summer months. What's that? I am going to go ahead and post a link. If I can find my chat box, which I cannot. I think I accidentally closed it. Do you still have your chat box to post the Rosebud Thorn link, Sarah?
I don't have the link open on my computer, so I can't share it, but.
Hold on, I think I found mine. You should all hopefully be seeing the link right now. So if you didn't have a chance to answer your Rosebud Thorn question, you can still do so through that post. And because we're almost out of time, we'll switch to using the link instead of answering in the questions box. So thank you all for joining us today to learn about this beginning stage of money management. Again, it was wonderful to be here with you and to see you all again.
Thank you so much, Anne and Sarah, for this great webinar. I think everyone got to learn a lot. I had a lot of great responses in the question box. Yes, so thank you again. We love having you here. Thank you to everyone who attended.
Yeah,
Thanks, everybody.